massive night for the Socceroos. Football never sleeps, football never stops. It's 1-0 Australia.
Brandon Barella doing it for Australia.
And hits it, what a strike! But never ever right off the Socceroos.
Yes, it is World Cup qualification time for the next tournament in 2026, co-hosted by the USA, Mexico and Canada. It starts for the Socceroos against Bangladesh on Thursday. Welcome to the Socceroos preview show. I'm Scott McKinnon, joined by Alex Brosk and Andy Harper. G'day, guys.
How are you, Scotty?
Now, it starts, Harps, against the world number 183. Is this a nice way to kind of ease into World Cup qualification mode?
Look, shouldn't have too much trouble with the first couple of matches, but overwhelmingly for me, the best news is having the Socceroos on home soil.
Yeah.
You know, I think something like since Graham Arnold has taken charge, and then with the COVID World Cup qualifying series, etc., if I can call it that, less than a quarter of the Aussie games have been in Australia, totally starved of action in the flesh of our national men's team.
Yeah.
So I can't wait for that to be corrected, at least in part.
So for you, Broski, then pulling on a shirt and playing in front of your home fans, what does it do for you as a player?
Oh, look, there's nothing like it. I think particularly at Melbourne, at Amy Park, it's such a good sound, a good crowd, then the players feed off that. So I think for them coming home in this great occasion, they had a good October window where some very good performances. Coming home to play in these games will be great for them.
Let's check out the squad that Graham Arnold has put together for this, and not too many changes. It's mostly settled, but Joe Gauci comes in to replace Andrew Redmayne as the backup keeper. Maynard Brewer is there, of course. The number one man between the sticks is Matty Ryan. Jackson Irvine is leading the way through the midfield there. Massimo Luongo, he played against Bangladesh back in 2015. He retains his spot, and we go through to the strikers, and this is where we have seen a bit of change. Jamie McLaren is back in there, and the other name that's worth talking about is Cassini Yengi, who gets his first crack. You can see he's got 0 caps, 0 goals, but he has been in great form for Portsmouth. I've got to say, Broski, any glaring omissions for you there? Should an Iran Kunda be there, some of those young, exciting players?
Oh, look, I'd love to see him in that squad, but I think there's plenty of time for him to come into it. I think this is a game where Arnie needs to, get some wins on the board, start the campaign well. And he's got his squad that's sort of gotten to this point. They've had some incredible friendlies recently and deserve to have that spot that they've got. For him, it would have been just more experience, but I think there's plenty of time for that.
OK, we'll talk about experience. Yengi, who gets his shot here. I mean, is he the number 9 Arnie has been looking for? Because he said it this week that he's still searching for someone up front here.
Well, he's a frightening prospect, Cassini Yengi, a frightening prospect. Things started really well for him in Portsmouth, which is a great environment. It's a club with a huge following. They've been through some tough times and now climbing back to a status that's more befitting their history. And for him to be part of that, I think, is enormous for his growth as a player. But just physically, Cassini Yengi could be anything. And let's hope that these steps that he's making at Portsmouth now into the national team setup can continue, because if the answer to that is yes, then the answer to your question is yes. He can certainly be that person.
He's always struggled, and he mentioned it when he was here, for motivation and getting up for big games. And there's no better place to be. That's right. So there's no better place for him to be than in a country that lives and breathes football, and they're all about their football there. So great place for him to be. He's obviously responded. He's doing well. He's been consistent with his scoring outside of that period where he was injured, and I'm excited to see what he can do in Arnie's squad.
Well, speaking of someone who's consistent in their scoring, that's Jamie McLaren, who is back in the mix for this one. He's been left out of a few squads. We know how prolific he is as a goal scorer in the A-Leagues. Can he take that into the international arena? And
that's been the question. We've seen in the A-League there's been nobody better in the amount of goals that he scored and the consistency he's been able to do it every year, 30-plus goals. It's incredible. But for him, I think it's... look, he hasn't ever really had a regular starting spot within the national team, and I think that's difficult as well for a striker to get the goals on a consistent basis like he does. But when he gets that game time, he does have to make it count. I think these are the opportunities, these games, where someone like him, Arnie has tended to go for Duke and play Mitch Duke more often than not, but when guys like Barella, guys like McLaren get a chance, they need to make it count.
So what would you do for this one, Harps, against Bangladesh? Who would you be playing up front?
Well, it I'd like to see Cassini get some game time, but later, because I think I would imagine, without second-guessing Graham Arnold, it's not as though you're just going to throw a first cap from the start to destabilise the mentality maybe of other players. I'd be going for a Jamie McLaren, depending on who he wants to play on the wings, because Jamie's
familiar with that place too,
and he's the best goal sneak in the squad. It's just that when the games change, that's when Jamie comes and goes from the equation, in my interpretation. But with what I'm going to assume is a lot of consistent service into the final third, a lot of consistent delivery into the penalty area, that's where you put your best goal sneak. And I think he's the best goal sneak we've got. Not necessarily the best footballer. I mean, he's up against some great players for that mantle, but as far as goal conversion, the potential there, I think it's Jamie.
And he's getting it done with that haircut as well, isn't he, Broski? Hey, you got to love that. Talk about the service. Someone like Sammy Silvera, who's been in red-hot form as well overseas. We saw what he did with the Central Coast Mariners. Is he someone who could push himself into a starting position, or is he still more of your super sub?
Look, I don't think he's a super sub. I think he's a player who can create something out of nothing. We saw so much of it here last season with the Mariners, and he's continuing to do it there in Middlesbrough. So, look, I think he's exciting. He's someone who can give something different. I think with Craig Goodwin, as we've seen with other players, we've relied more on service to get into the box. But, you know, in a game where we are going to dominate and have the opposition pinned in their half, you need someone who can break the line, someone who can do something different, and he's, for me, someone who definitely can.
Yeah. Craig Goodwin as well, obviously gone to Saudi Arabia.
And doing well.
Played against a bloke called Cristiano Ronaldo on the weekend.
Might be something one day, keep an eye on it.
Yeah, keep an eye on this bloke. But what do you think this move has done for him? Because, I mean, he was pretty criticised when he left, but he's doing things like this. I mean, it doesn't seem to have slowed him down.
No, and look, it's unbelievable for his bank balance, I'd imagine. And so who's going to criticise a bloke for doing that?
Yeah.
I'm certainly not. His game just is maintaining a really high level. I think that's the most pleasing thing about Craig Goodwin. You know, he came from an A-League background in the last World Cup campaign, and you know, maybe there were people thinking, can he make it at the next level? Can an A-League player make it at the next level? And he showed in the World Cup most certainly that you can. And the pleasing thing is, I think he's maintained that form, and it's the other end of the spectrum. You've got Cassini Yengi as a debutant, and Sammy Silvera. If he can find that sort of consistency, Silvera could be anything as well. And Craig Goodwin has shown it. And the brilliant left footer he is can work magic. So why wouldn't you want to use it?
And you'd want to have him starting, wouldn't you? And I guess you talk about that move. He's playing against the best players in the world in Saudi, so he won't be scared to step up anywhere. And we've seen it in World Cups too.
Exactly right. If the World Cup doesn't scare you, then these games certainly aren't going to.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Andrew Redmayne, I've got to talk about. So he's missed out. He's the bloke who got us through to the last World Cup with that ridiculous save, the grey wiggle. We know all about it. Is this the end of the road, you think, potentially for Redders? Missing out here, or is there still plenty of penalties and saving for him to do?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's the end of the road. I think he didn't make this squad because his form to start the A-League season was poor by his high standards, although last weekend he was much better again. But he, like a lot of his Sydney teammates, were just missing for the first 3 weeks. That, coupled with the fact that Graham Arnold wants players to have game minutes, in Redder's case, good game minutes, has gone against him in the short term. I mean, it could well be the last time we've seen him as a Socceroo. Broski, I tend to doubt it. I think once he gets back to his normal swing of things, he'll be a squad-by-squad consideration, and still very much in that consideration.
I agree, especially as well. We've seen Arnie want, a penalty specialist when it comes to tournaments and heading into the Asian Cup. Someone like Redmayne is invaluable. We've seen that already, the quality when it comes to penalty shootout. So I do guess if he keeps the form that he showed on the weekend, if he continues to show that to the end of the year, then he'll be there.
And you just feel for Joe Gauci too, who got the call up and then had to pick the ball out of the back of the net 5 times against your old blokes, Sydney FC. All right, we are off to a quick break. On the other side, we're going to dig into the defenders a little, and of course, the opposition that the Socceroos are facing in this first round of World Cup qualifying.
So, 69 years since they last played for the Soccer Ashes, Australia and New Zealand do battle for the recently found trophy once more. Time for the cross. Back post was Chakati, and there is the opening goal. Mitch Duke with the finish, although Harry Suter is claiming it too. To Aloma. Oh, it was a good effort, wasn't it? Goodness me. The whip and the dip, and only the crossbar saved the Socceroos. This corner goes towards the back post, and it's nodded in. And Jackson Irvine has perhaps made the Soccer Ashes safe for the Socceroos.
That was the last encounter for the Socceroos, a 2-0 win over the Kiwis to win the Soccer Ashes. But check out this. These are some of the recent results for the Aussies. But have a look at the opposition. Argentina, they're a pretty handy side. Ecuador a couple of times, and then the World Cup champions who have a bloke called Messi playing for them. Mexico ranked 12th in the world. England are ranked 4th in the world. And then obviously the win over the Kiwis. But Harps, playing against this really high calibre of teams, it's got to be a real positive all round for the Socceroos to get that experience against the very best, not just pretty good, the top.
Yeah, well, it's a great reflection on a whole pile of things. Mostly how respected the team is as an opponent now, and what Graham Arnold's done with them. The round of 16 qualification didn't come from nothing. People notice it. When you start making waves at that level of football, people don't ignore it. And so these invitations to play these very big countries are therefore forthcoming. We just now have to hope that it continues.
For you, Broski, like playing against the best players in the world, Graham Arnold said that, they feel like they belong. This is a bloke who scored, let me think, a brace against David Beckham. Do you remember that? I don't know how that didn't make the documentary, but no, how did you find playing against the very best? Did it bring the best out of you as well?
It definitely does. Being on the pitch with some of the players that these guys have been up against recently, it definitely gives you a lift. But I think when they reflect on those matches as well, and each one that passes, they're looking, going, well, not only did we play against them, but we competed. Against England, I thought they should have won. The amount of chances that they had. Against Argentina both times, with the best players in the world, they did extremely well. So I think the belief that comes from playing against these teams, playing well and playing the style that Arnie's trying to get these boys to play, has been immense in terms of just the belief it's given every one of them. I think for a while they're heading into the World Cup, they struggled believing everything Arnie was saying, and then something just clicked, and all of a sudden they go into every match thinking they can win and playing that way.
Harry Suter, he's a bloke who continues to score goals, although the one that he picked up against the Kiwis, I'm not sure. I mean, that was pretty much Mitch Duke. It must have just glanced a bit of fabric here, but 6'6" of him. He has scored 8 in 19 games for Australia. How key is he? Just with that height, set piece time, and we've seen what he can do in defence as well.
It's unplayable, really, when the service is right. Even at the top level of football, guys like Harry Suter remain incredibly dangerous, and then when he gets his little nipple in front of the ball, to Piam, it's ridiculous that he's been credited with that goal. But
I know. There's the argument.
Anyway, he's been a great acquisition, a seriously good acquisition, and Australia are well stocked in the centre of defence with really tall options, particularly against some of our Asian opponents going through. Bangladesh, the first cabs off the rank, they're going to find it very, very difficult to deal just with the size of a Harry Suter or a Burgess or a Sakati, for that matter.
On the young bloke, Sakati, I mean, what an awesome debut it was for him against the Kiwis. He's a young bloke, 20, but playing with real composure, and he's getting game time at Parma as well, and a lot of game time. So, I mean, this guy's got such a bright future.
And you look at him there, and he is a kid, and you forget that. The moment he walks on that pitch, he plays like a player well beyond his age. And again, you're reminded of it after the game when we saw the interview that he did, that he is just a boy. But the way that, like you mentioned there, just how composed he is, his ability to play these types of passes into space, that's something that kids don't generally see. They tend to take the safe option. He's not about that. And Arnie, he did say that Arnie told him, just do what you've been doing on a weekly basis. That's why you're here. Continue to do that. So again, that belief that Arnie sort of gives these kids and these players that come into it, is huge. And that partnership there with Suter was great. We've seen, like Hub said, that the stocks we have there in that central defensive position, good position for Arnie to be.
Let's have a look, shall we, at Bangladesh, the first opponents the Aussies face in their quest to World Cup qualification. So, FIFA World Ranking of 183. The Aussies have played them a couple of times. I mentioned that before. Back in 2015, they scored 5 goals to nil, 4 goals to nil. Broski, is this just a matter of Socceroos by how many, especially playing at home at Amy Park and you don't get that many opportunities to play in front of your home fans.
No, that's right. No, I do think so. I think it's by how many. I think the way Arnie won't allow any complacency to come into this squad. They won't be looking at the results from the past or how many they're going to win by. He'll be stressing that these games are incredibly important. You need to start well. You need to move the ball well. And the way they're playing anyway, like I said, the confidence and belief that they have at the moment, he won't allow anything other than a good performance, a good attacking display. We want to see more goals. We've seen a lot from set pieces. So I think, trying to break that, area of the field open a little bit, create more, get goals from other areas instead of set pieces, that's what he'll be looking for.
Okay, well, the one following that is against Palestine. They're ranked, there you go, 96th in the world, but this one was meant to be played in Palestine. Obviously, it has been moved from what's going on at the Gaza Strip, just awful stuff happening. It's played in Kuwait instead. It's just remarkable, these guys putting a team on the field, to be honest. I mean, they're playing for more than just World Cup qualification, really, with everything that's going on in their neck of the woods. Yeah,
look, it's been incredibly difficult for the whole community on both sides, I think, and sometimes, not sometimes, I mean, football does take a back seat in these sorts of circumstances, but the fact that these guys are still willing and able to go out and represent their country speaks volumes for them, given everything that's happening with their families and things.
I mean, how did these guys, I know it's impossible to put yourself in their situation, but even think about playing football when survival seems to be key. It's going to be a lot of emotion in this, right?
For a lot of people in the world, football is their survival.
Yeah.
And it is the way they cope. Now, this is a whole set of circumstances that one can't even...
No, you can't
begin to imagine what's going on, but the tumult is just something, it's something that they learn to live with. A lot of the Palestinian guys play in other countries as well, as they've tried to get leagues going in Gaza, etc. But this does take me back to the World Cup qualifiers against Syria. War-torn Syria at the time, just a couple of qualifications ago. And remember Al Soma, Syrian striker, hit the woodwork with the last kick of the game at the Olympic Stadium. Yeah. That goes in, and Syria go through, Australia don't.
Unbelievable.
Right? This was in the middle of that whole ISIS stuff and the Syria war. So we look at it from our very comfortable existence, and thank God for it. We're very blessed. But what it does to people's mentalities can't be underscored, and it's the horror of what's going on. Somehow, these footballers are able to lace up their boots and try and pursue this higher footballing cause, and it's to be watched at least on that basis.
Just remarkable. All right, we are off to a break. Up next, we're going to dig into Graham Arnold, his big milestone that he's bringing up on Thursday. Don't forget the Matildas are back in action too early next month with a couple of friendlies against Canada.
Cuts it in, Adriana Leon. What a hit! What a great goal! Canada take the lead with a rocket into the top corner. Back to Kerr, who cuts it for Fowler. Less than 2.5 minutes on the clock, and Sam Kerr sets up Mary Fowler to give the Matildas the dream start.
We go. Sydney FC and Western Sydney Wanderers get it on again. And still, Cassini Yengi.
Past one on his left foot, let's fly! First blood in the derby, and it's sky blue.
Ewan Hall against his former club. A howitzer into the top corner. In it comes, and Lafondra with 10 minutes to go. Is that the crucial blow?
Well, bring it on. We cannot wait for that to go down, and it's coming to you right after the international break. Here are your round 5 fixtures, but the ones that we can highlight there, the Jets up against the Central Coast Mariners, the F3 Derby playing for that beautiful core sample of the highway, and then Sydney FC against the Western Sydney Wanderers, both coming in off wins. Sydney FC with a monster win with the bounce-back factor under Ufuk Talay. That will be an absolutely juicy showdown indeed. But let's talk a bit about Graham Arnold, who is going to have most matches in charge, internationals, it must be said, of the Socceroos. Now, this is a bloke who, before World Cup qualifying, people were calling for his head. He gets through with that amazing win over Peru, leads us to our greatest ever World Cup. L'Equipe, the magazine, labelled him the best coach from the World Cup, and here he is. He bleeds green and gold. Harps, you know him very well. Incredible milestone and in some incredible company there as well.
He's in rarefied air at the moment, and he's worked long and hard to get it.
Yeah.
Crucially, it wasn't just the chattering classes who were suggesting he might not make the World Cup. The word is that was coming from within the organisation itself. So
really?
Brodsky touched on it before. Somehow he navigated through that.
Yeah.
Somehow he navigated after game 1 against France when the arse fell out of it again.
Of course.
And history records this incredible piece of work done by him and his staff and the players to get to the round of 16, and it's gone on since. He's been around the national team since Adam was a boy, player then coach. This is his time, and he's earned it. And I hope he's relishing it, and let's hope there's more to come.
It looks like he is. I mean, he coached you for a long time as well. What is it about Arnie that he seems to get almost father figure-like, seems to get the best out of the players? Did you find it that way as well?
Definitely, and the whole squad did when he was there. And I think the difficulty he had is with the national team, you don't get the time that someone like Arnie, who likes to develop those relationships, he gets in a season. He's got all the pre-season, he takes the boys away, and he gets time to build those relationships with the players. In the national team, you've got 3-4 days to come up with a game plan, go and execute it, win the game, and see you later, they're off again. So I feel that connection is where he might have struggled with early, but having been around as long as he has, and he eventually, like Harp said there, he eventually found a way to get these boys to believe in what he was saying, to believe in themselves. And credit to him, because you're right, I mean, that could have been cut short before the World Cup. He's had an incredible World Cup. And since then, the teams look a different squad.
No, it's been awesome to see, and we wish him all the best on Thursday night. Here is a look at the fixtures coming your way. It's Australia v Bangladesh. That's where it starts on Thursday, 16th of November. Then Palestine against Australia Wednesday, very bright and early, 12:30 a.m. Should be good. We're very much looking forward to it. That's all we have time for today. Guys, thank you for your company.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you for watching at home. We'll see you for more Socceroos action coming up. Cannot wait for it. Bye for now.